6 years in Japan. What have I been doing this whole time? Yeah, you heard that correctly. It's been 6 years since I moved to Japan. 6.5 years to be as precise as I possibly can. You're probably thinking, what has he been doing for so long in Japan? Why 6 years? He hasn't thought of moving to another country. He hasn't thought of going back home to his home country. What could he possibly be doing for 6 long years? Well, I'll tell you one thing for sure. It honestly only feels like I've been in Japan for 1 year. And every time I come to the realization that I live in Japan, I still can't believe it. Seriously, I really can't. 6 years in Japan, and I can tell you all the stories and the things that I've personally gone through, and the things that I regret doing, and the things that I wish I could have done, and the things that I'm really happy about, and the things that I really hate about Japan that I've discovered after 6 years of being here. It all goes back to right before I moved to Japan. This was like 2 weeks before I moved to Japan, maybe, and it all started roughly around that time, and it has to do with the college or the university, whichever you want to call it. It wasn't really either or. It was kind of like in between. And it basically has to do with how I got into that situation and how I ended up moving to Japan 6 months earlier than I was actually supposed to. So 2 weeks before I moved to Japan, this was 2018. This was like November of 2018. So the tail end of the year. I wasn't supposed to move to Japan till like midway through 2019 maybe, or somewhere around that time possibly. But it ended up being rushed by 6 months, which is a lot. And it was super sudden. But basically, the way that I was going to pursue in moving to Japan, or the way that I said, you know what, this is how I'm going to get to Japan, and this is how I'm going to make it happen. This is the best way possible. This is the most ideological, whatever you want to call it, situation or idea to get to Japan. And that was to do what a lot of people might do, which is one direction that people would go when trying to move to Japan, and that is join a school. Go to school. Get some education in life. And that's exactly what I decided to do. So I applied to a school that's here in Shizuoka. And why Shizuoka specifically is because my family is actually from Shizuoka. So, and I had family living here currently as well. So Shizuoka was the best option for me. And moving to Tokyo just would have been so hectic. Would have costed way too much. It would have been just so complicated for me to get settled and everything. Just because how crazy huge the city is and all that kind of stuff. You know, how many people there are and everything. So Shizuoka was a better option for me just because I could settle easier. Small city. But also I already knew my way around since, like I mentioned, my family's from Shizuoka. So it all begins with me applying to a school in Shizuoka and basically being told by the school when I contacted them. They contacted me back and said, you know what? Our program starts next week and we want you to join it. And I said, I still live in Canada. I haven't moved out of my house. I haven't sold my car. I haven't sold all my belongings, all my furniture. I haven't said goodbye to my friends. I haven't told my doctors that I'm leaving. I haven't told my dentist that I'm leaving. I haven't told my bank that I'm leaving. Now I gotta suspend all my accounts and stuff like that. I haven't done any of that. So I told the school, I was like, yeah, next week's not good. You know, I was not expecting to move to Japan for at least another 6 months or so. So can we maybe do something about that? And they said, so is 1 week not enough for you? You know, they just really, you think 1 week is enough? You really think 1 week is enough for me to settle all of that I just explained? 1 week. And they said, can you come to Japan? Can you join this in 1 week from now? Yeah, okay, sure. So time went by, didn't know what to do at the time. I had 1 week to deal with, and they were like, you know what? You're joining this next week. We're putting your name in here. So I had 1 week to do everything that I mentioned, and instead of being in Japan 6 months after, I ended up moving next week. So there I was in December of 2018, already in Japan, and not figuring out a damn thing that I needed to do in life, and you know, walking around and not being settled and all that kind of stuff. I had nowhere to live. Luckily, my parents are in Shizuoka, so I was able to, you know, stay with them for a bit. But yeah, it didn't last very long. I can tell you that for sure. So you know, time goes by. I'm here in Japan, and I'm totally lost with what to do. And you know, the schooling said, you know what? Yep, the program's starting. So here you go. Here's your curriculum. Here's everything that you got to do, and it starts next week. So good luck. And you know, I was thinking just like super mind blown at the time because I was 6 months ahead of schedule, and I was thinking, oh god, what am I going to do right now? I'm not prepared for this whatsoever. I had everything planned out for 6 months later that I was going to potentially do, and now here I am already in Japan, and it's just a little too overwhelming, if you know what I mean. So I joined the curriculum earlier than expected. Went through all the programs that I had to do, you know, all that kind of stuff. It was, I think, 6 months each program, or each, what do you want to call it, curriculum or something. It was 3 of them in total, 3 semesters, I guess you call it. And I completed all of them, and then after that I really had nowhere to go because the school wanted me to join their college or university that they had connections to, but I knew that that just wasn't going to work out for me, so I went on my own. And yeah, the school was, to say the least, not very fond of my decision, I can tell you that for sure. But I had a smile on my face because I had a plan. Okay, I was yeah, I was just gonna go on my own ways, you know, and it'd be like, okay, I'm walking out of this school and I'm gonna find my way on my own. And that's what I did. That is actually what I did. And I ended up getting a part-time job just to settle in a little bit easier. So I ended up working for about 2 or 3 years as a part-time worker, as many hours as I could. And anytime overtime was offered to me, I would accept it just to, you know, make up for the losses of not being a full-time worker. You know what I mean? So I was working. And alongside of that, figuring out, okay, what am I going to do next? Because I can't stay like this forever. Being a part-time worker, I'm not currently in school, and I was thinking, okay, where the heck are we going to go now, right? So time just went by, and eventually things kind of took a turn for the worst, I guess, at my workplace. It's a bit of a story, which I'm not going to go through, but things happened. To the point where I had to leave the workplace. And luckily, right at the time, I had a very, very good situation happen. I got offered a job, a full-time job. So I immediately took it regardless of what the job was. I was like, you know what? I'm taking this job. It's a full-time job. And I was offered a position, and I was thinking, okay, there's going to be almost zero chance that I'm going to find any other place to go anytime soon. So I was like, okay, I'm taking this, and I'll figure things out as I go. I just got to make more money and more living situations in my life. So I said to myself, this is the way we're going to go for now, and this is how I'm going to continue to rise. So time went by, I got my new job. And it was like roughly, this was like, how long ago was this? 3 years ago? This was like 3 years ago or something? 2.5 years ago-ish. And I said to myself, okay, now that I'm in this situation, I gotta find places to settle. And places that I know that I'm gonna want to be comfortable with. And things that I want to do on my free time, you know, hobbies that I want to pursue in, all that kind of stuff. So some of the things that I wanted to do, or I should say one of the biggest things that I wanted to do when I first moved to Japan, or the reason I wanted to move to Japan, was solely for one thing. and that was to learn how to drift. I'm serious. That's literally the reason I wanted to come to Japan. One big hobby that I wanted to pursue and that I basically couldn't do in my home country back in Canada, which was to learn how to drift, learn how to drive a manual Japanese old sports car, and learn how to slide it across a racetrack. That's what I wanted to do here. And yeah, I can tell you, that plan did not go to plan whatsoever. I can tell you one thing, that plan fell short immediately as soon as I came to Japan. Why, you might ask? That's because of two things, actually. One of them is inflation started hitting, so things got more expensive in the world and all that kind of stuff. Secondly, the coronavirus situation happened right after I moved to Japan, so for about 2 or 3 years or whatever it was, and everything was at a standstill, and nothing was just going anybody's direction, stuff like that. So as time went by, I kind of changed my ideas and went more towards things that were a little more simple to get to, like starting a YouTube channel, having more manga to collect and stuff like that. I kind of went a different direction than it was supposed to be, but somehow things kind of worked out. And then you fast forward after the coronavirus, still working, doing all that kind of stuff, and trying to find somewhere to settle. And then I ended up here, where I am now, after being in 2 other apartments, which the first was a total disaster, I could tell you. Long story short, it was on a main road, super noisy, 24/7 buses and trucks and taxis, all the crazy taxi drivers going all across the roads and stuff like that, 24/7 day and night. And then that just absolutely didn't work out for me. So moving into the second apartment, and things were great. Things were good there. It was a studio apartment, living by myself. And yeah, my neighbors were great. The building manager listened to everything that I had requested or things that I asked for. They said yes to basically everything I asked for. Nothing was refused, and anything that I had a complaint about or anything that I asked for was listened to and was accepted as well and was taken care of. So things were good. But then the time came where I moved out of that place for one reason, because of this place here. And this is solely because of my grandmother, who passed away at this time. I think it was like 2 years ago. Was it like 2 years ago? I believe it was like 2 years ago. So this apartment was left behind after she left. And nobody in my family was anywhere nearby in Japan to take accommodation of this place. I was the only one. So aside from my parents, which they're already in an apartment, so I was the only one left, and everyone else in my family was just either too far away, like in Tokyo or Osaka and stuff like that, or just their life situation just didn't work out for coming here to live in this apartment. So I ended up taking ownership, I guess you call it, or livingness of this apartment, and it's been 3 years now, I believe it is, and we're still here. But as of the recording of this, I have actually found out something potentially incredible. Okay? And I may be using all the dramaticness with you guys, and all the funny voices and all the crazy stuff that I might be talking about. But this might actually be something really good that's going to happen. And that is, I might actually be moving out of here. Yeah, I'm serious. So it's been, I think, 3 or 4 years since I moved into here. And we, or when I say we, I'm talking like my family. We've owned this apartment unit for, I believe it was like 47 years or something, a long time. This building is the same age as the amount of time that we've owned this unit. We are the original owners of this unit, so everything's in really good shape, and like all those doors behind me you see here, all paper doors, are all original from like at least 45 years ago. So everything is original in this unit, and it's coming time that this place is just getting old, and it's time for me to move on. And right, it's not 100% sure, but it's like likely, very, very, very likely to happen that I might actually be out of here pretty soon. Actually, it's possible that it could happen. I already do know my future location, where I'm going to. I already know where my next location is. In fact, it's it's right behind that wall, actually. Yep, it's great. I'm moving about 10 meters behind me. Yeah, what a move that's gonna be, huh? No, but all in serious though, I'm actually moving next door. Now you're probably thinking, why? Why would I do that? What possible reasons could you have for literally just moving next door? And that has to do with what I just mentioned, and that is everything in my unit here is all original from at least 45 years ago. And the unit next door is completely renovated and is currently owned and housing my parents. But they've decided to move out of the building. Actually, yeah, if I'm being honest, I don't really know why they're moving out of here. But because they are moving out, I'm going to actually take ownership of that unit next door. It's completely renovated. The kitchen's been completely redone. The bathroom is brand new. And all the wallpaper, the ceiling, floors, everything's been redone. So that whole unit is completely redone. And it has a spare room, just like what I have here, actually. I have a spare room, but I use it purely as storage for quite a few reasons, actually. But the unit next door has a room that I'm actually going to be able to use and thoroughly turn into a studio space. So as you see right now, we're currently in my bedroom, which houses my whole setup, my studio setup, my bed, my dresser, all this stuff, the closet, all my clothes, all that kind of stuff. But we'll actually be able to separate everything once I potentially move next door. And the whole setup that we have here will be turned into a complete studio setup. And I already have a very good idea of how I'm going to exactly lay out the whole studio space, how I'm going to make it look, what I'm going to do to the whole room and everything like that, how I'm going to renovate it, stuff like that. So only time will tell what'll happen. But that will be phase, well, I don't know if you call it a phase or not, phase 4 maybe you call it? It'll be the 4th place that I'm living in. So I believe, yeah, we could call it phase 4, right? Or we could call it a new era, I believe, because we haven't had anything change or anything new happen since like 3 or 4 years ago when I moved into this place. Nothing's really happened. This setup that you guys see here has literally not changed whatsoever. Everything has been like this for years and years. It's time for a change. Oh yeah, it's time for a change. Change in Japan might not always be a bad thing. It might not always be a good thing, but it might not always be a bad thing. You know, some people say they'd rather leave their life exactly as it is and not change anything as the years go by. They want everything to remain exactly as it is. But in Japan, the story could change dramatically depending on your situation. And a lot of the times, it's always good to have change. And in Japan, that can really, really make things a lot better for yourself or a lot worse for yourself, depending on how you deal with the situation. You know what I mean? Like in Japan, there's a lot of situations that you can encounter where you might think it's the greatest thing ever. And then there are other situations that you encounter where you think to yourself and say, this is the worst thing I've ever encountered in my life. And I can't believe I'm in this situation. There's a lot of situations in Japan where things might not be as glamorous or as glorious or as fascinating as you would want it to be. There's a lot of things in Japan that are really devastating, I guess you call it, is maybe a word I could use. There's just a lot of things where it just doesn't work in your situation, you know what I mean? Or there are just certain things in life where you just can't avoid it even if you don't want to encounter it. And it's things that a lot of people before moving to Japan don't realize or maybe don't even know of. And I mentioned this in the past as well to you guys in previous videos, and that is Japanese workforce being something that you totally wish, oh, you totally wish could be better in Japan. But unfortunately, it just doesn't happen, and it won't happen. And like when it comes to working in Japan, when it comes to trying to settle, like permanently settle, so finding somewhere where you're gonna live, where you're gonna live for a long period of time, somewhere you're gonna work for a long period of time, get used to all your coworkers, get to know them well for years and years to come, and doing all that kind of stuff. But at times, you do realize that there are very, very big problems about living in Japan long term. 6 years in Japan. And how do I feel? How do I feel about being here for so long? Might not be as great as you guys think, actually. So there's a lot of things in Japan where, oh, it's just the greatest thing ever, you would say. Or, oh, the food in Japan. It's just the most amazing thing ever. How could you ever get sick of this? How could you ever not love it here? You go to a restaurant, you're paying like $5 for a full meal, and it's like 5-star quality, regardless of what restaurant you go to in Japan, regardless of what convenience store you go to, anything like that. And you think, oh, it's the greatest thing ever, right? How could you ever hate living in Japan? How could you even think that? And then you go get a job, and you say to yourself, maybe Japan's not so great after all. There comes times where workforce in Japan can be the most hectic thing you could ever deal with. In fact, it could be something where you wish never existed, but you just can't avoid it, or you just can't get rid of the situation. And being in Japan, working for years and years, you realize the problems that come across working in Japan, being a full-time worker, being a part-time worker as well, but just being in workforce in general, and having to deal with culture differences, major culture differences. Being Japan has very strict rules when it comes to being at your workplace, has very strict things that you must follow in order to be a good worker. You must always put 110%, even if you really have nothing to do at your workplace, or when it's like off season at your workplace, you must always put 110%, regardless of the situation. And sometimes you gotta force yourself to work overtime, even though you don't want to. And sometimes you gotta make yourself work overtime, just because everyone else at your workplace is. And you know that if you don't, then you stand out in a bad way, to the point where you kind of feel selfish or not as good of an employee, or you think that everyone's going to look down on you if you don't do these kind of things. So there's a lot of things in Japan where you think to yourself and say, there's certain things I gotta do. And it's a lot of things that I don't like. But you gotta mix and match the things together to kind of realize and come together and say, I gotta do this in order to survive here. So you're working for years and years on end, and things may seem great at first, but in the end you think, things could be a lot better, couldn't they? Now, I'm not saying that things aren't going well for me. I'm not saying that I'm having a life where I wish things were so much better than they currently are. Trust me, I love it here. 6 years in Japan proves that. Otherwise, I would have moved back to my home country in Canada, or somewhere else maybe. Maybe I would have moved to Australia, maybe New Zealand, or travel the world. Go some other places. But 6 years here in Japan has proven that, yeah, I like it here. I do. There are downfalls with living in Japan. There are downfalls with living in any country, of course. But in Japan, it's not always luxury. And it's not always people saying, I just love how great and how convenient everything in Japan is. And how nice the people are. And how incredible every restaurant that I go to in Japan. And how incredible all the convenience stores are with such good food. with all the onigiri, famichiki, and all the amazing snacks and treats that you can have in Japan. Sometimes you find the worser sides of Japan. And it's not always the greatest thing, but you know you gotta deal with it. In the end, you live here for over 5 years, and you say to yourself, what have I done in Japan? Why am I in Japan for so long? What was it that persuaded me and motivated me to stay here for as long as I did? And how much longer will I be staying here? How much more can I handle? How much more can I take in all the greatness of the culture, all the polite people in Japan, all the craziness of workforce in Japan, and doing all the greatest hobbies I've ever wanted to pursue in my life, like playing taiko, Japanese taiko drums, buying my dream sports car, and potentially going drifting has not happened. And doing all sorts of things that I've always wanted to do in my life here in Japan. At 6 years, I've done a lot. I can say I've done a lot. But I can't say that I've done everything I've wanted to do. And I can't say that things will either get better or worse from here. But the one thing I can tell you for sure is motivation and passion. Persuade yourself into doing the things that you want to do. And live your life the way that you yourself wanted to live your life. And not the way that, someone else would want you to live your life. Because it's not always that living a life that somebody else wants you to live will make you think that you're living the best life you could possibly live. And that is one thing that I can tell you is totally something you shouldn't do. You should never, ever be told by someone else to do certain things. You should always follow your dreams. Always do all the things that you wanted to do in life. Always keep yourself happy and motivated to do everything that you possibly wanted to do. And that is how you continue to stay here for 6 long years in Japan and tell yourself that you're never gonna move away or you're never gonna go somewhere, and then the last thing you tell people is, I'm moving next door. Oh, it's great, isn't it? It's a pleasure. It's a joy. 6 years in Japan. Oh, I just love it here. Oh, it's totally amazing. Let's keep it going, shall we?